the correct information out from your news outlets. I want to introduce who's with me this afternoon. City Manager Shelley Dickstein, U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, U.S. Senator Rob Portman, Deputy Chief Matt Carper, State Representative Phil Plummer, and former County Sheriff and Congressman Mike Turner. I just want to take a moment to talk about the outpouring of support we've seen across the country. Today, to moment, I think I've had over 70 mayors and from across the country reach out. Particularly have been of help have been Buddy Dyer of Orlando, who had to work with his community through the Pulse nightclub. Mayor Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh, obviously with the Tree of Life Synagogue. Mayor Cranley of Cincinnati has been helpful. And Mayor Jane Castor, who's the new mayor of Tampa, who is a former police chief. Honestly, I have to say that unfortunately, because we have so many of these incidences, there is a bevy of mayors that are able to give great advice and feedback. I think that's, quite frankly, a little sad if you think about it, that they've learned so much because all of their communities have gone through these terrible mass shootings. Today at 2 o'clock, I was very appreciative that Senators Brown and Senators Portman and Congressman Turner, as well as U.S. Attorney Ben Glassman, the FBI and ATF came together for a briefing with Chief Beal and Chief Carper. We then walked the scene of the site in the Oregon District, so the senators and congressmen could get a good sense of exactly what happened on the ground. And I want to say how much I appreciate their support and their calls and what can I do questions during this day. It's meant a lot to me personally, and I know it's meant a lot to the citizens of Dayton. With that, I'd like to invite Senator Sherrod Brown to come forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. This is obviously a terribly difficult time for this community, and I so appreciate especially police and fire and the rescue operations, how quickly the police department, police officers on the scene so courageously stood up and did the right thing and saved literally potentially hundreds of lives with the amount of ammunition the shooter had, and how quickly they responded, and how what a short period of time from the first shot to the last shot. So it really does tell me a lot about local public servants, police and fire and rescue operations. We had, the mayor tells us 20 first responders from the region came, in addition to the 6 or 7 from the city of Dayton that arrived all within 20 minutes to save lives. So that's what local communities do, which come together like this. The mayor took us all to walk through the Oregon District. It's in many ways the center of Dayton in terms of evenings and small businesses. Every single business in that area just about is locally owned and with the vibrancy of local ownership, and what that means. And they're all coming together as they will tonight at the vigil, but for the next many days, the way that Dayton came together after the tornado and after in dealing with the KKK rally a few weeks ago. My first talk with the mayor today, the first thing she told me, other than expressing the grief and the heartache of this community, was how she had gotten literally dozens of texts, emails, and phone calls from mayors around the country, almost all of whom have had something like this happen in their communities. And so our first response, I'll speak for myself, Connie's my first response, of course, is sadness and hearts and prayers and thoughts for families and the community overall, including police and fire, and how they respond to this in the weeks ahead from the trauma that they've seen as public servants. My next thought was anger at our country and society and our Congress for not doing anything about this. The House of Representatives has passed a bill to do background checks, overwhelmingly bipartisanly. I've called on Senator McConnell to bring the Senate back into session. We can pass that in one afternoon, background checks. The President of the United States could sign it that day. There's just no reason we shouldn't be doing that. So we certainly pray for the victims and care about the victims, but Congress needs to do something. Our state legislature, again, woefully inadequate in dealing with gun violence, also needs to react and respond in the right way so that these incidents just don't happen week after week after week after week in our country.
Thank you, Senator. Next, I'd like to invite Senator Portman to come forward to say a few words. Senator Brown came from Cleveland. Senator Portman came from Cincinnati. I'm just completely amazed by people coming here to get here as soon as possible. Senator Portman.
The Miami Valley is in mourning today after the tragedy of last night's shooting. We did walk down to the Oregon District, and we saw what has been a thriving commercial section of the city, and saw lots of great small businesses. We also saw workers in hazmat suits. These were EMS personnel who were having to clean the blood off the sidewalk from the tragedy of last night. Shocking, unspeakable, tragic. We also have seen this community respond, as they will for the victims, for the mothers and fathers and sons and daughters who were struck down last night and those who were injured. We've seen it here in this community just since May with the KKK rally. We've seen it as this community came together after the devastating hurricanes, which, is still an ongoing project, but I've talked to the mayor a lot about this, and Mayor Willie knows that I'm impressed with what I've seen is how this community comes together and responds. And we saw it last night with these brave police officers who, in the face of danger, ran straight into it. You'll learn more about this at 4 o'clock. And all I can say is, because we're not at liberty to talk about it, and I think it's appropriate that law enforcement provide the perspective that you need on this, but this courage was extraordinary and saved lives, probably hundreds of lives, given the situation. There is also an effort going on in the community that I hope everybody will support, which is through the Dayton Community Foundation. And it's called the Oregon District Tragedy Fund. It's a fund that's been set up to help the victims. Again, this community comes together. I'll be making a contribution to it. I'm sure everyone will behind me. And I know this community is going to come together and help these victims, those who are injured, the families of those who lost lives. So this is a tragedy that requires that kind of response. My colleague Senator Brown has talked about legislation. We should also, of course, as we figure out what happened here, learn lessons from it, just as we need to learn lessons from others. And are there more things that can be done? I'm sure there are. But I will say there's something deeper going on here. And if you look at the suicide rates, if you look at the addiction rates, this community's done a good job in responding to it, but it's been at ground zero in terms of the opioid crisis as well. If you look at the mental health crisis in our country today, there aren't enough laws, and in fact no law can correct some of the more fundamental cultural problems we face today as a country. And the shooting last night is an indication of that. So I look forward to working together with my colleagues to try to respond the most effective way possible. But we also have to look deep into our hearts and figure out how could someone point a gun at someone who he had never seen or known and pull the trigger. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, I appreciate the Senator's donation to the fund that the Dayton Foundation has put together. I know that our community comes together, and I know that this will be no different as the other episodes we've had in the past few months. Next, I'd like to invite Congressman Turner to come forward to say a few words. Appreciate him calling me this morning and appreciate him being here as well. Congressman Turner.
I want to thank the mayor for her leadership on this day of sadness for our community. This is a strong community, and I appreciate the mayor working diligently to pull everyone together. Also, I want to thank and congratulate the mayor and the police chief on the police presence that was in the Oregon District last night. It was extraordinary that they were able to respond so quickly. As a result of the police's actions, my daughter and hundreds others who were down in the Oregon District last night are alive and are safe today. I also want to thank the first responders, the police and fire who came to the scene and responded unbelievably for our community. This is an unbelievable amount of evil that we cannot comprehend. I appreciate the mayor pulling us together for a briefing today on the investigation that's ongoing. We'll learn more about this particular case. But Senator Brown is absolutely correct, and as is Senator Portman, as we look across the country and we see this, we need a national conversation as to how we come together on a bipartisan basis to address this. Legislation, culturally, as a country. I thank the mayor for pulling us together and for her diligent work to try to find answers for the community, and also for the work last night that kept so many safe. Thank you.
Next, a state representative, we used to call him Sheriff Phil Plummer, wanted to say a few words.
Thanks, Mayor, and again, thank you for your leadership here. We've had some rough times in the city of Dayton, but you've really, you met the challenge and you've led the city, so thank you for your hard work and your efforts here. Just want to let the citizens know you have a great police department, a great fire department here. I went and toured the crime scene with everybody behind me here, and I was hoping it was my last crime scene I toured, but we're back in action. But walking away from that crime scene, I could stick my chest out, and I'm very proud of our first responders. They answered the call. They ran towards a gunfire. When you're up against weapons like that, it's tough on those guys, and they made the call and they took care of business. So thank them when you see them. We can't give them enough awards because they saved a lot of people last night. Fire department, you guys did a great job. And our county dispatch center, they get overwhelmed with, mass situations like this. So they did a tremendous job also. So you guys, let's not let this keep us down. Like I said, we had a rough year, but we always bounce back. We're a resilient community. We're in the game, we're in the fight, and we need to figure this out. So let me ask you guys this. I'm not going to get into policy discussions, but we, the people, make the call. We don't work for special interest groups. We work for the people. So let's sit down and let's figure out a solution to this. It's mental health, it's guns. There's a lot of variables here, but we got to figure this out. So you guys, thanks for covering this, and let's stay strong, Dayton. We're in the game here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Deputy Chief Carper will come forward to give any new information he may have. I think it'll be pretty brief since we will have such a detailed briefing at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, and thank you for everyone's patience. We do have a comprehensive look at this coming up here at 4 o'clock. The only thing I will add right now, we do have a lost and found that's going to be established at the safety building downtown, 335 West 3rd Street. That's the City of Dayton Police Department headquarters, beginning at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. There were a lot of items that were left in the Oregon District, so if you could spread the word to the public, if any items were left, they can come and retrieve those beginning tomorrow morning. Thank you.
All right, questions?
Is there a word that you would describe the people of Dayton? I mean, you guys went back to the tornadoes, the KKK rally, this, I heard the word resilient, resiliency. Is there something that sums up the spirit of the people that live here?
Are you asking me?
Anyone who's willing to answer.
Well, I will answer, and then anyone else can answer. The word I use for Dayton is it has grit. And I think that is a word that describes what is this community's been through for the past 50 years, the grit of the changing economy, the grit when tough things happen, they come together. There's resilience in grit, but I think that is what makes us so strong and continues to make us resilient. And so I think that describes Dayton and its people in a way that I'm very, very proud of. I don't think everybody says.
And then, we talked about the reaction, how the first responders really came to the need of everybody there. A lot of after the fact, talked about mental health and gun violence, but is there any way to proactively prevent something like this from happening? We see it time and time again, but this is a question for anybody, but is there a way to proactively prevent it from happening?
Anybody have a comment? Okay.
We need to do what's right. If a civilian's walking around with body armor, we call that clues. So, why does a civilian have body armor? If somebody is not acting right and they have high-powered weapons, reach out to them. We all know when somebody's having problems. We have to be a community and support people. Let's start doing what's right. I watched some of the news conferences from the shooter's neighborhood, and they kind of said the guy had some problems. But we fail to step up and do what's right and address those problems. The guy may need somebody to help him out, give him a hand up. So, if something doesn't seem right, make a call. Call the police. That's what we're here for. Call us. You know, we have professionals here, counselors. You know, if it isn't right, just reach out to us.
Yes, Senator.
The former sheriff said that sort of questioned civilians wearing body armor like that, wearing those vests, ballistic vests. And I say the same about civilians buying assault weapons. We tried an experiment in this country from the mid-'90s to the mid-next decade for about 10 years of a ban on assault weapons, and it didn't get every assault weapon off the street, but it did make a difference, and there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people alive today that might not have been alive if we hadn't had a law prohibiting the purchase of assault weapons. And those weapons don't belong, they're not weapons for hunting. We don't question people having a gun to hunt. We don't question people having a gun to protect themselves, but civilians carrying assault weapons. And it just, again, speaks to the courage of the police department with pistols or other weapons, but nothing like taking on a guy with an assault weapon. And why do we put our police in that situation too, where civilians carry these weapons of war? It's an unfair match by any stretch.
Senator Portman, a question for you, sir. The 2019 raid, there's going to be a mass shooting tomorrow and another one the day after and every day this year. You mentioned earlier in your comments that you're sure something more can be done. Do you have a day in mind or a week in mind, just having a plan, something to address these issues?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it requires a comprehensive approach because the tragedies you're talking about, each is different, and we don't know all the facts here yet, but what we do know, which I've seen in public reports, so I can say this, he shot his sister. We know that in a short period of time, and you'll find out the exact period of time at 4 o'clock, I won't tell you, but I'll just tell you in that short period of time there was a burst, and I've seen public reporting on that as to how many shots were fired. If that's true, that magazine, of course, would be illegal. So there's a law. So do we need more laws? Yeah, we probably do, and we did just pass something last year in 2018 to tighten the background checks. And I think there's a consensus now that we need background checks to make sure the wrong people don't have access to weapons. You'll learn more at 4 o'clock about whether he would have been caught up in that background check or not. But my point is, it's not just about laws. It's about something deeper. And mental health was mentioned earlier. We have a crisis in this country. There's no question about it. You know, people have talked about the deaths of despair, and they talk about the suicide rates, they talk about the addiction rates, and they talk about the mental health issues that are causing some of these. So this is a broader discussion that needs to be had. And I hope that when we get back, we will have that discussion, and we'll have it at the state level, we'll have it at every level, but we also have to have it in our communities, and in our homes, and in our hearts. And former sheriff, now Representative Plummer, talked about that. You know, in almost every one of these cases, there is, as you look back on it, some indication of a mental health problem. In some cases, actually, there have been investigations of individuals that unfortunately did not result in that person, you know, being treated the way he or she should have been. Parkland's an example of that. We don't know in this case yet enough, but again, from public reporting and what former sheriff, now representative, just told us, there were indications apparently. So how do we, in terms of prevention, how do we actually identify those individuals, get them the help they need, which is mental health treatment, which is sometimes with these red flag laws and other things to literally keep them in a situation where they can't harm others. Sometimes that means incarcerating. So there are needs for us to look at this on a broader basis.
Senator Mr. Turner, you've been working on this issue obviously in Congress, but can you talk, I don't know how comfortable you are talking about how not only does this one hit home in your hometown, but obviously with your family as well.
Excuse me. Well, Senator Portman was saying this is a very difficult legislative issue. That's why I think we need a national conversation. The legislation that was passed in the House that's currently pending in the Senate would not have affected this situation. Senator Portman pointed out that in Ohio also, the magazine that was used is already illegal. There has to be, though, a legislative, broader conversation where we can find where we can have an impact. I think what the sheriff is saying is also incredibly important. And if there's a neighbor or a friend who you believe pose as a risk, take that first step. It's unthinkable for us how quickly our own families become so at risk. And this is why this is so important for us to pick up the phone, say there's a problem, say that there's an individual who appears to not only be a threat, but perhaps have weapons or caches to the extent that they have nefarious intent. I think that the former sheriff, state representative, has a great call to the community that if you see something, say something. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take like one more question. Yes.
To what extent was the shooter a known entity to law enforcement or the community? Did he have an arrest history?
Yeah, we'll present that at 4 o'clock. And I think we're actually getting ready for the 4 o'clock briefing. So rather than put you off to 4 o'clock, maybe we should put it off to 4 o'clock and so we can present what we have, and that'll answer a lot of questions.
And I just want to thank the senators and congressmen for coming this evening and this afternoon, and appreciate. And I'll see you guys at 4. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great job. Great job.
Glad you're back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm just grabbing my mic, sorry.
stand over on the side. Yeah, and Senator Lang. Okay, good evening. This is, my name is Nan Whaley. Oh, please come on this side, Senator. Yeah. And if any of the city commissioners want to come and stand up forward on this side, Okay, my name is Nan Whaley, the mayor of the city of Dayton. I appreciate all of you who've been with us since 7 a.m. this morning. We've had a briefing at 7, 10, 1, 3, and 4 o'clock. And certainly appreciate the work of Dayton Police Department and Chief Beal's team and Chief Beal himself. The Community Police Council, many whom I see standing here behind the cameras, have received this briefing as per is our regular process. And if you could stand on this side, Commissioner Shaw, we are really appreciative of them taking the time, as they always do, regardless of the incident. They come to our community to sit with the police department, to discuss the response. So I'm very grateful for them, because even when there are incidents that don't get any press at all, they are there. And I want to make sure that they know how much the City Commission and the City of Dayton and the police department appreciate their leadership. I also want to mention that tonight at 8 p.m. we will be having a vigil at the Oregon District on 5th Street. This is a way that, this is our district, this is our community, and so we will be having a vigil. Everyone is invited to attend and encouraged. I want to recognize everyone who's here of the elected sort. Obviously, Senator Sherrod Brown, appreciate him coming down from Cleveland. Senator Peggy Lehner is here with us today, appreciate her coming. Commissioner Shaw and Mims, who have been here all day, just doing whatever needs to be done, as well as Commissioner Fairchild. Just having that support of our community leaders and our state leaders has meant a lot to me personally, and certainly I speak on the behalf of the citizens of Dayton that it means that a lot to them as well. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Chief Beal. This is a pretty typical piece that we do regularly on officer any kind of incident, and certainly I just want to say that the amazing work of the police department and the fire department this past, 12 to 15 hours is demonstrated. But I'm really amazed at what they do every single day. This is what they do every single day, and I am so grateful to get to be the mayor of a city with such an outstanding police and fire department. Chief Richard Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm here to provide an update for what you are well aware is an active shooter that occurred in the Oregon District in the early morning hours of today. A little bit of a timeline. Today at 1:05 a.m., officers were patrolling the Oregon District during bar closing time and heard gunfire. They observed a large crowd running away from this gunfire. The officers immediately advanced toward the gunfire, and within approximately 20 seconds, they engaged a suspect who was actively firing and attempting to enter a crowded liquor establishment. Threat was neutralized in approximately 30 seconds of the suspect firing his first shots. You will now hear one of the 911 calls we received.
We have an active shooter on 5th Street.
Okay, 5th Street, what intersection?
I don't fucking know, it's right outside, hole in the wall.
Okay, right outside.
Long gun, one man, had a mat, multiple shots. Right outside Newcomb, give us that Newcomb.
Someone got shot there?
I don't know if there was shot, you're shooting in the air, people were running and screaming. Active shooter outside Newcomb. Get a mat, take a shot,
shooting right now?
adult male. Yes, outside, shoot up outside. Stay inside!
Is it black male, white
Stay the
male?
fuck inside!
Is
Say
it
what?
black male, white male?
I could not tell he had a mat. We ran inside, we're barricading the door.
You're inside hole in the wall, correct?
Currently haven't said, what was it, Newcomb? Yeah, we're inside Newcomb. He was right outside Newcomb.
Okay, I got the call in, okay?
Now you will see a video that was taken inside of one of the shops on 5th Street in the Oregon District. The suspect has been identified as a Connor Stephen Betts. He has a minimal criminal history as an adult. His traffic violations, speed, failure to control, and failure to yield. He was wearing a mask, a bulletproof vest, and hearing protection. He was armed with a .223 caliber-like rifle with 100-round drum magazines. He is 24 years of age and he is deceased. Fatalities from this assault include Lois Oglesby, a black female, 27 years of age. Megan Betts, white female, 22 years of age. She is the suspect's sister. Saeed Saleh, who is a black male, 38 years of age. Derek Fudge, black male, 57 years of age. Logan Turner, white male, 30 years of age. Nicholas Coomer, white male, 27 years of age. Thomas McNichols, black male, 25 years of age. Beatrice Curtis, black female, 36 years of age. Monica Brickhouse, black female, 39 years of age. In addition, there are 27 confirmed victims who were injured and were transported to local hospitals for treatment. Basic overview of this scene, of this entire incident, is now on your screen. In the lower left-hand corner, you see a square. That is the approximate location of the suspect's vehicle. That was parked, and then the suspect left and then went on to commit this assault. The rectangular area toward the right side and more center of the diagram is where the suspect fires his first shots and killed his first victim. He then enters onto 5th Street, and then there are 8 other victims killed by the suspect before he is fatally struck at the entrance to Ned Pepper's, which is where the circle designates. This is just the suspect's initial route. So you saw that square block or box that was on the screen, saying where he fired his initial shots. This is that area illuminated in the daytime here, and that red arrow is the pathway he took to get to 5th Street. We're now going to show a couple of videos of this event that will show graphic content. They will show police officers engage this individual. They will show multiple shots being fired. We have done, try to eliminate any video at this time that shows any victims who were shot. So we'll start with the first video. These are outside of Ned Pepper's. Dayton police officer running on the top of the screen to engage the suspect. See the suspect enter the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That's him there entering or attempting to enter Ned Pepper's when he is struck multiple times. And he stops there. And there's another video here, a little bit different angle. You see a lot of officers who are entering in from the upper left-hand corner of this screen and begin heading down the roadway there to engage the suspect. There's one officer there. Another officer coming. The patrol rifle. Additional officers responding. Officer with a sergeant with a shotgun. Next is a photographs of the suspect's vehicle, which is a 2007 gray Toyota Corolla. Next is a photo of the firearm used by the suspect. And you see in the lower left-hand corner those double drum magazines would have a capacity of up to 100 rounds. And on the lower right-hand corner, that firearm is identified. The officers involved in the act of shooting in this event include Sergeant William Knight, Chad Knight, who came on in 1997, is a more than 20-year veteran. The remaining officers have been on it roughly about 3 years. They include Officer Brian Rolfus, Officer Jeremy Campbell, Officer Vincent Carter, Officer Ryan Nabel, and Officer David Denlinger. We've had extraordinary assistance from many, many different agencies: the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, the Ohio State Patrol, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, represented with us here on stage, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, also one of our federal partners joining us here on stage, Sinclair Police Department, University of Dayton Police Department, Five Rivers Metro Parks, Kettering Police Department, Riverside Police Department, Montgomery County's Coroner's Office, Huber Heights Police Department, Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office, Box 21, Red Cross, Bellbrook Police Department, and also the U.S. Attorney of Southwest Ohio has joined us on stage, who have been very supportive and helpful in this investigation, which is ongoing. Just going to remind you that we're a little bit more than 12 plus hours into this event, so much is unknown. The Dayton Police Department Homicide Unit will be handling the criminal investigation. Administrative investigation will be conducted by Professional Standards Bureau, and that occurs anytime an officer discharges a firearm. Per police department policy, for the 5 officers and 1 sergeant, we're going to be placed on administrative leave. That is per protocol. We are still asking for assistance in this investigation, notwithstanding the substantial local and federal and even state resources dedicated to this investigation. If there's any information regarding this incident, we request it to be relayed to the Dayton Police Department by calling the tip line at 937-225-6217. There's a family assistance center has been established at the Dayton Convention Center where you are at, and can be contacted directly at 937-333-8430. And for additional information, please follow our Twitter page at Dayton Police. That is the entirety of the presentation. At this time, the status of this investigation. Once again, I reiterate, we are very, very early into this investigation. Any suggestion at this time of motive would be irresponsible. We do not have sufficient information to answer the question that everyone wants to know: why? We do not have that answer at this time. We will clearly pursue this investigation to try to understand motivation in this crime, assuming that there is a motivation that's understandable. So that's still before us. We have a lot of evidence to process through, from digital evidence to physical evidence to phone evidence. So much investigation is before us. So we're very early on. This is very basic preliminary information I'm able to provide at this time. With that, I will open up to any questions you may have.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You may have mentioned this earlier today, but there was a report that while the shooter had his rifle out, someone grabbed the end of the rifle, and so he dropped it and grabbed a handgun and started shooting, continued shooting. Is that true?
We have no information to substantiate that at all.
As far as you know, it's just the rifle and no other gun.
There was a security officer after the suspect was down who removed the rifle from underneath him, or the weapon from underneath him. that happened, but I have no information to corroborate what you just mentioned at all. We're going to have to do this in orderly fashion.
Was his sister the first victim, Chief?
No, she was not the first victim, but she was one of the initial victims. Right as he came out of that alleyway, she and another male who was a companion of the suspect was shot and wounded. So they were victims initially after the first person was shot. So very close proximity.
And then your department this afternoon, I believe, with other agencies, served a search warrant out of home out in Bellbrook. Can you tell us, did you find more weapons and other evidence there, and what type of evidence you may have found that could be?
I can't speak to the evidence that's recovered. We clearly did recover evidence. Much of this we're going to have to examine, so I can't really comment further on that at this time. Okay?
How many bullets were not used?
Well, there's more than one gun, but I can tell you that particular weapon that you saw was ordered online from Texas, but transferred to the suspect at a local firearms dealer here in this area. There's also a shotgun that was acquired from a local firearms dealer here, two different dealers. But that weapon originated in Texas.
Can you speak to the legality of those weapons or the magazines involved? What are the process?
Let me say there's nothing in this individual's history or record that would have precluded him from purchasing that firearm.
Is that magazine illegal, 100-round magazine?
There is no indication that that is illegal at this time.
Is there anything significant to mentioning the shooter's race?
To mention it?
Yeah. Is there any significance?
Is there a possibility this could be investigated as a hate crime?
I don't think I understand your question. He's a white male.
Yeah, right. Is there any significance to mentioning that?
Like hate crime?
We have no evidence to suggest that there's a bias motive in this crime at this time.
Do you know how many shots were fired and how many shots were left in the magazine?
It is certainly dozens were fired. I don't think we have an absolute count at this point, so I don't want to put a number out there and have it not be accurate, but dozens of rounds were fired.
Chief, we're hearing from...
Officers and how they responded just in terms of the firepower they're up against. Can you describe this by watching what you were able to see there? Describe how you feel watching your officers and how they responded.
Well, I would tell you that what was crucial in their response was the availability of both shotgun and patrol rifle. That was crucial. That was a commitment we made really well over a decade ago, and even added to that inventory since my tenure as chief. I'm in my 12th year now. So recognizing the potential threats that we could face, particularly people wearing ballistic armor, we know we have to have the kind of equipment and weaponry to be able to thwart that. That was pretty crucial in this case, and I'm sorry, I think you had a question.
Was the shooter with his sister prior to the shooting?
Yes, yes. The information we have is they all came in the same vehicle, but they separated at some point.
Was there an altercation in the vehicle before?
No information in that regard. Yes.
Chief,
How was their family doing? They've lost both their children today.
Well, I think you can imagine this is a nightmare for them, and I think they are struggling, as you can understand.
Have they spoken at all? Have they said it?
We've had a chance to have contact with them, yes, we've had.
Any indication that he was influenced by El Paso, the incident out there?
Pardon?
Any indication that he was influenced by the incident in El Paso?
We have no information to suggest that. None at this time.
Have you had a chance to talk to her boyfriend? If he came in the car with them, he knew that this gun and the ballistic vest and all this stuff was in the car?
We had an opportunity to talk to the individual who rode in a vehicle with him. So that is part of our investigation that's ongoing.
Any information on when the vest was purchased or where that came from?
Yes, we do have that information, but we're not going to release it at this time.
Chief, we're hearing from classmates of his from Bellbrook saying when he was in school there, he was suspended for a year because he had a hit list. Can you confirm any of that? I know no criminal charges were filed.
I can't confirm, and I'm going to, because this is going to speak to potential motive, right? I mean, that's what people are trying to get to here. There is far too much information that we have to review before we can even begin a conversation about possible motive. And I will not talk about any potential slice of evidence, is value or not at this time. It's just way too early.
Chief, you said there were 2 weapons?
Yes.
So he had a shotgun and an assault rifle on him?
And I'll just reconfirm. We have the shotgun wasn't.
Shotgun was in the vehicle, the assault rifle was.
Yeah, so there are two weapons, but one of which was used in the assault.
One he left in the vehicle.
Yes.
That he took to the place with his sister and her friend.
Well, let me just say that those weapons eventually wound up at that location. They separated at some point later in that evening. So what he did during that time that they were no longer together is a question mark in our investigation and something we're going to have to determine.
When do we believe
Was anything found at the house?
I think that question was already asked, and I said we're not going to talk about any evidence at this time.
Around for fire between your officers and this young man.
Yeah, I don't have a number for you right now. We were trying to confirm that. We basically do ballistics checks, so we look for shell casings at the scene. Then we have to match that against magazine capacity and rounds missing, and that's not always a precise comparison. So I don't have a precise number for you at this
And
time.
all the deceased victims were killed by him and not by any other?
We don't have any reason to believe that any of the persons deceased were shot by other than the assailant at this time.
Any time on when they may have
Sisters.
split up from that car?
Hang on, what's that?
Any time when they may have split up? You said that the suspect and the
They did at some point in time. I don't think we have a precise time for that, but clearly it was some point in the evening that they did part ways.
Do you know what time they all arrived together?
I don't have that available to me right now. I mean, I don't have that specific information, so.
Did he shoot at your officers?
Hang on.
Did he shoot at your officers, or was he, killed?
I don't think we have that known with absolute certainty. There was a vehicle shot early on in that exchange, right as our officers were either engaging or about to engage. So I can't really speak to that precisely.
Was the sister and the companion targeted by the shooter, or were they part of just an indiscriminate shooting?
That's really something we can't tell at this point. It's a question, it's a nagging question, and I just don't have the answer. We're trying to sort through that ourselves.
Did any of the other victims, did any other victims know the shooter, for example? Did any other victims know the shooter?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can you speak on the significance of that bar? Was there a reason why you wanted to go in?
Not that we're aware of, so we really don't know if that was somehow of importance.
There's a press person over here.
With any of the 27 other victims, are they in critical condition? How are they doing? Are any of them?
We don't have, I think, anything precise on the other 27, do we?
There's been no change.
One's critical.
Chief, how will this incident change how your department polices that area? Will it?
Well, it's interesting because we already have a concentration presence there just because it's an entertainment venue. We realize a lot of people come to Oregon District. I've been there very recently. So certainly we know a lot of folks will be there, and we have police officers present because of that reason. So will this cause us to evaluate? We will evaluate everything that touches on this incident just to determine whether or not we need to do anything differently. But there were certainly plenty of officers present that acted virtually instantaneously and effectively ended this in 30 seconds.
Chief, can you talk about your officers? You went through the guns that they used, but just the fact that they were able to be there and respond in seconds.
It was crucial. Had this individual made it through the doorway of Ned Pepper's, with that level of weaponry, there would have been a catastrophic injury and loss of life. So stopping him before he could get inside there, where you saw all the people they were running in there for protection, was essential in minimizing to the degree we could casualties and deaths from this incident.
Did the shooter have a chance to reload?
I'm not aware of that being the case.
Do you have any information about legally?
They were obtained legally, yes.
I just
Chief,
wanted
do you
to
have any
ask,
information that
Hang
the
on.
shooter, the suspect, talked with anyone, spoke to anyone as this was going on?
None, Mike, none.
Now, Megan Betts, she was there with his friend, right? And when
Right.
she was fatally shot, he wasn't hit at all?
No, he's one of the ones that was injured, transported to the hospital.
One of the 27 injured?
That is correct.
Okay.
So
What was the suspect wearing? There's reports of a mask, and then there's, when we say body armor, we mean like a bulletproof vest, or was it
Yeah, ballistic vest.
and a mask of some sort?
That's some sort of a mask, correct.
What kind of a mask?
I don't have that information available.
Chief, just to clarify, the companion, that was the shooter's companion or the sister's companion?
Well, let's say it was one and the same. They
Okay,
all came
they all-
together.
they-
I do want to pause for a minute because I want, like, the FBI has a site that we want to get out publicly. Todd, if you can come join us and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Todd Wickerham. I'm the FBI special agent in charge for this part of the state. And www.fbi.gov, Dayton shooting, right? So one word, Dayton shooting, after www.fbi.gov/Dayton shooting. And what we can, people can submit there, if they have videos, if they have other social media associated with this shooting that they think would be of value to the investigation, this is where they can go to upload this to get it in the right hands as we're working jointly with Dayton on this investigation.
Thank you. And Ben, do you want to mention anything regarding Department of Justice attention to this matter?
I want to extend our condolences to the people of El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. They're incredible people, and they've been through a lot. I just want to also thank the law enforcement in both places. The job they've done is incredible. I also want to congratulate them. Nobody could have done what they've done. It could have been as bad as it was. It could have been so much worse. I just have to thank them. The job they've done is incredible. They were right on the ball in El Paso. They were there so quickly, and it takes in less than a minute. Think of the damage he did in such a short period of time. In less than a minute, law enforcement acted and killed him. And it would have been unbelievable. It was horrible, but it would have been so much worse. It would have been so much worse. I just want to say that these are two incredible places. We love the people. Hate has no place in our country. And we're going to take care of it. I spoke with Attorney General Bill Barr and Mike. I spoke to Christopher Wray, Director of the FBI. I spoke to the governor, both governors. And we're doing a lot of work. A lot of people working right now. A lot of law enforcement people. And spoke to members of Congress about whatever we can do. And a lot of things are being done right now as we speak. I'll be making a statement tomorrow sometime. But just on behalf of our First Lady and myself, condolences to all. We have to get it stopped. It's been going on for years. Years and years in our country. We have to get it stopped. So thank you very much, and I will be making a statement tomorrow at about 10 o'clock. And I'll see you there. Thank you.
What are you going to do about automatic weapons? What are you going to do about the problem of automatic weapons? The gun problem, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to address it?
I'm talking to a lot of people, and a lot of things are in the works, and a lot of good things. We have done much more than most administrations, and it's not really not talked about very much, but we've done actually a lot. But perhaps more has to be done. But this is also a mental illness problem. If you look at both of these cases, this is mental illness. These are really people that are very, very seriously mentally ill. So a lot of things are happening. A lot of things are happening right now. And I will see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Not at all. Not at all.
Do we know who the vehicle was registered to? Was it his vehicle, the sister's vehicle, the companion's vehicle?
Do we know who the vehicle's registered to? To his father.
Suspect's father.
Yes.
Has something like this happened in Dayton before? Or is this
Not this particular type of event, no. No, we've had some multiple casualty shootings, but they weren't what we would describe as an active shooter.
So would this be considered the largest fatality that you've dealt with?
certainly my tenure.
Is it clear if all of the weapons were in the vehicle at some point, or if maybe when they split up, if the
Yeah.
suspect obtained the other vehicle? Is that clear?
That's what's not known. It's just not known. So we can't say that with precision, whether the weapons were there all the time or after they separated, that's when the person went and got equipment and geared up. We just don't know at this time. We're hoping to determine that.
Those drum magazines carry 100 rounds apiece?
Collectively.
Collectively are 100
Collectively.
rounds in two drums?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, under no federal or state statute,
Not that I'm aware of.
do your officers carry any magnitude of bullets like that, 50 or 100 at a time?
No, no.
Would there be any use to your officers carrying that many rounds at a time?
I don't even know it's a question. I'm going to kind of speculate here. We carry sufficient, I mean, we do have the availability of additional rounds should we need them, and we deploy those in a way that we think makes sense. I'm not going to say what that is. We need to resolve every piece of, certainly evidence, evaluate every piece of evidence that we have now and will receive until the point we believe we have no more evidence to review. And that includes interviewing, whoever we need to interview, that may be able to shed light on this individual's conduct in the recent days, as well as any historical information we think would be important to know that could explain conduct ultimately. So until we have what we think is the known universe of evidence, we're going to keep pursuing this investigation. I just don't know when that's going to be.
Has the companion said what the plan was for the evening or why they split up at some point?
I don't have the information. And folks, I've told you everything I really can share today. You'll probably ask a lot of questions again I've already answered. That's going to conclude this interview. I appreciate your attention to this matter. I ask you to lift up the victims in this event and give them the honor and dignity they deserve in their lives and for their tragic, ultimately avoidable death.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. That's going to conclude our press conferences for the day. I'm sure we'll have more in the coming days ahead. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you working really diligently to confirm any information that you have had today. I ask you to continue to do that. If we're not giving you the information, there's a reason why, because the investigation is underway. I'm asking you, since we've been so forthright in these conversations, to respect that back to us as well, and make sure that before you put anything up, that you have it confirmed. Okay? Thank you for being great today. No more press conferences this evening planned, okay? 8 p.m. on the vigil tomorrow. We don't have our time scheduled for tomorrow, but you all will be the first. Well, no more press conferences tonight. The vigil's at 8 p.m. tonight in the Oregon District, okay? No more press conferences tonight. I'm sure we'll have press conferences tomorrow. You all will be the first to know.
When will the Oregon District be reopened, or has it been during this?
After the vigil, it will be open to traffic.
Will it be open to the public? Is it open to the public now to walk in?
Can we complete public walk again?
Yes, they can walk through this.
Public can walk through now. I should also mention the Oregon District Transportation Garage is free tonight for people to, if they want to come down to be a part of the vigil, they can come and just go and park in the Oregon District Garage. Okay? Thank you.